Okay, so welcome to Chapter 2. So we are now looking at decimals. We're comparing decimals. Chapter 1 was fractions, and now we're moving on to decimals. So first off, we're going to write this number in the decimal place value below. Okay, so this is just a reminder on what each of the numbers are. So for example, that 4 is at hundredths, tenths, thousandths. What is that? Okay, so what we're going to do first is you look at the decimal point. Okay, so that's our decimal point right there. The number immediately to the left of the decimal point is our ones. So let's take a look at our number. Let me write it a little bigger. Right up here, 4050.106. Okay, so how many ones do we have? Well, there are 0 ones, so we have 0 ones. And then let's look at the tens. How many tens do we have? Well, we have 5 tens. Go ahead and fill in the hundreds and thousandths. Well, we have 0 thousandths. And, sorry, excuse me, we had 0 hundredths. I said that wrong. And then we have 4 thousandths. Okay, so let's take a look at the decimal side, so the decimal fraction side. How many tenths do we have? Well, we just have 1 tenths, 0 hundredths, and 6 thousandths. All right, so let's gonna go ahead and fill in the table below. Okay, so the description is going to be, let's see this. So this is going to be kind of how I set it up here. So we have 1, let's see, what place is that? That's going to be the 10. So 1 tens, 2 ones, and 4 tenths. All right, so for the next one, let's fill this in again. So we have, well, actually, we don't have any whole number part. There's 0 whole number parts. Okay, so one thing, I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but one thing to be really, really careful of, and I have checked with the Vet Tech program, some of the head teachers there, and they really want you to focus on this. See that 0 in front of the decimal? If you don't have a number, always use 0. Okay, so we would never write something as 0.36. Okay, because sometimes when you're writing with a pen or pencil, that little point dot there might sort of fade away, and somebody might think this is 36 instead of 0.36. So always use a 0. All right, so what would we have here, though? We would have 3 tenths, tenths, it's a hard one, 3 tenths, and 6 thousandths. Oh, I'm sorry, 6 hundredths. I skipped something there. And let's see for this one. Go ahead and fill in these two here and then catch up with me, and I'll go ahead and write them down. So we have 1 hundredths, 0 tens, 4 ones, 6 tenths, oops, and I'm running out of room here, and 5 hundredths. Oops, where's my whiteout? 5 hundredths. Using a lot of whiteouts, it's not even that far in the video. 5 hundredths. Bad sign. And the last one for this part. 1 not that hard. 1 tenths, 2 hundredths, and 5 thousandths. All right, so for now, we're actually going to skip this part right here. So just X that out on your notes. And here we go, next part. So, I already went over this. Very important, what I just went over. If there is no whole number part, you must write a 0. So for example here, we had no whole number part, so we wrote a 0. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to convert these following fractions into decimal form. Alright, well this is just 4/10. So 4/10, well we knew what that looked like. That was 0.4. Because there are 4/10. Now this one is 20. And what? 7/100. Well, we knew that the hundredths was in this place. So we skip a spot and then we write our hundredths. So we had no ones, but we had 7/100. Okay, go ahead and try fill these ones in by yourself. Okay, so for C, well, we have 3 as the whole number part, and then we have 4/10. So 4/10 is just going to be 4 in the tenths place. And then for D, 6/100. Well, I would go ahead and write this, but what's wrong with this? What's wrong with the way I wrote it? It's missing that 0. Okay, so please check, make sure, go ahead and write a 0. Also, one thing to caution, I know some students like to use that as a 0. In math, this is not 0. That's considered the empty set. So please don't use this symbol for math. I know in I think it's the military they use this as 0, but for math we don't use this as 0. So it's confusing. So please go ahead and just use that regular 0 there to make sure I'm not thinking you're writing the empty set. Okay, so let's compare two decimals. So when we're comparing two different decimals, deciding which decimal is larger, the first thing we look at is the whole number part. Okay, the whole number part is what we were talking about before. So for example, for A, the whole number part for this first one would be a 1, and the whole number part for the second one would be a 2. So the decimal number with the larger whole number is the greatest decimal number. Okay. But if the numbers of the two decimals are the same, we're going to compare the digits in the, what do you think it's going to be? In the tenths place. Okay. So for this first one, for A, when we were comparing this, we noticed that's a 1 and that's a 2. So because the whole number part is greater for this decimal, we're going to go ahead and say that this one is greater. Now 3. If the tenths places are equal, we're going to move to the right and compare the hundredths place digits. Alright, and you're just going to continue moving right and comparing digits until you find one digit that is greater than the other. Once you've found this, the one with the larger digit will be the, ooh, that's supposed to be larger, not lighter. Please go ahead and change that. That's supposed to be larger. Okay, so let's get back to this problem. Example 5. Compare the decimals. Identify which one is larger by using a greater than or less than symbol. Alright, so we already did this one a bit. We looked at the two decimals, and first things we do is check the whole number parts. Does one of them have a larger whole number? Yes. This is the larger whole number. So this is going to be the greater one. And remember thinking of Pac-Man going for the bigger number. The mouth is open towards the bigger number. Okay. Now let's take a look at this. Well, comparing the whole number parts, darn, they're the same. Okay, what's our plan? If the numbers of the two decimals are the same, compare the digits in the tenths place. So let's look at the tenths place. A 3 and a 4. Well, the 4 is bigger than the 3, so that means this number, 2.4, is going to be bigger than 2.3. And so when we're using our greater than or less than symbol, the mouth is going to open towards the bigger number. Alright, let's take a look at the last example. Well, the 1s are the same, so we need to move to the right. 2s. Those are also the same. Well, we haven't figured out which one's bigger, so we got to keep moving. 4. Gosh, that's also the same. Move one more to the right. Let's look at the 5 and the 9. Aha, finally these two are different. Which one is bigger? The 9 is bigger than 5, therefore that is the larger number. Okay, and we'll go ahead and fill in the greater than symbol for that one. Okay, so you just continually move to the right until you figure out which number is bigger. All right, 2.2, rounding decimals. So, many times in the healthcare world, you will round decimals to the nearest tenths or hundredths. Especially if you used a calculator to find your dosage. So if you're working along and you plug in your question or your problem into your calculator and you find out there's this very long trailing decimal, you need to find a way to round that. So when you're working with syringes, there are these two. Standard syringes are calibrated in tenths of a milliliter. That's how it's counted, in tenths. Well, I'm not entirely sure if I'm saying this right. Tuberculin syringes are calibrated in the hundredths. Okay, and that's on page 41 of your textbook. All right, so suppose you're calculating a dosage and the answer is 1.44444478. You can only measure as accurately as the calibrations on the syringe, so you're going to need to end up rounding your answer. All right, so to round decimals, the first thing we want to do is to underline the target place value to which we want to round. For example, the tenths or hundredths place. Then we're going to look at the digit to the right of the target place. If the value of that digit is 4 or less, we're not going to change our target digit. If the digit is 5 or more, we're going to round up. And don't worry, I'll show you how to do this. And then after that, we drop all the digits to the right of the target place value. Okay, so for example 1, round 2.462 to the nearest tenths place. All right, 2.462. Well, first thing we do is we underline our target place. We want the tenths. So this is the tenths. So now we're going to look at the number to the right of the tenths. Is 6 less than 4? 6 is not less than 4. So is 6 greater than or equal to 5? It is, yes. So because of that, we're going to round up. We're going to round this value up 1. Okay, so 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. So 2.5. And the last thing we do is we drop all digits to the right of the target place value. Okay, so all these other guys get dropped and we're left with 2.5. Okay, let's look at B. 2.462, so the same decimal, but this time we're going to round it to the hundredths place. Okay, let's underline our target value is the hundredths. That's going to be the 6. Let's look at the 2. Is that less than 5? It is. So because it's less than 5, we're not going to do anything. We're just going to write 2.46 and drop everything after my target place. So we're just left with 2.46. So that is the same number rounded differently. This one was rounded to the tenths and that was rounded to the hundredths. All right, so for example 2, we're going to practice rounding the decimal to the correct decimal place based on the syringe type we are using. So go ahead, try pause this video and see if you can round these numbers. All right, so for the standard syringe, well, we're working to the tenths place, so 2.41. Well, the tenths is that 4 right there, so we look at the 1. That 1 is less than 5, so we just stay where we are, 2.4. And drop everything to the left, to the right. Well, for this syringe, we look at the hundredths place. What's to the right of the hundredths? Well, since you don't see anything, we can just assume it's 0. Is 0 less than 5? Yes, it is. So 2.41 is our hundredths place calculation. Let's look at this next one. 0.036. All right, the tenths place is 0. Looking to the hundredths, that's less than 5. So we're left with 0.0. Wow, that's nothing. So you could actually write this as 0. Interesting. So actually, you wouldn't be giving them anything. All right, if we looked at 0.036, looking at the hundredths place instead, we'd look at the 3 and then focus on the 6. So 6, that's bigger than 5, which means we're going to round up. So we'd be left with 0.04. Let's look at the next one, 4.99. Ooh, this is going to be fun. 4.99. Again, focusing on the tenths place again. Look at the 9. 9 is definitely bigger than 5. We're going to add 1. But when we do that, that 9 becomes a 10. So when we have that happen, the 9 becomes a 10. We're going to carry the 1 from the 10, and that's going to become a 5. Okay, very tricky, but that's going to become a 5. So watch out with those 9s. You're going to have to end up carrying the 10, or the 1 from the 10. Okay, let's take a look at this for the hundredths place. Okay, here's the hundredths. Looking to the right, what number is there? Well, remember, 0, the sneaky little guy, is just hanging out over there. Well, 0 is less than 5, so nothing changes. We're just left with 4.99. And last one, 1.226. All right, looking at the tenths place is a 2. To the right of the 2, well, that is less than 5, so we're not going to do anything. Just 1.2 and drop everything after your target place. And the hundredths, 1.226. All right, identify your target place, which is the hundredths. Look to the right. Well, 6 is bigger than 5, so we're going to round up. It's going to be 1.23 and drop any numbers to the right. And there we go. Practice rounding for the tenths and the hundredths places, depending on the syringe you would use. All right, now 2.3. Converting fractions into decimals. So in a medical field, it is important to be able to convert from decimals to fractions. Because sometimes the medication order will be written as a fraction and the medication will be given as a decimal. Okay, so you're going to have to be able to convert between the two different forms. Sorry, just took a drink of coffee there. All right, so to convert a fraction to a decimal, what do? Well, divide the numerator. Okay, remember the numerator is the top number by the denominator. The denominator is the bottom number. All right, so here we go. Let's do the long division. So 4 into 3. Well, here's a problem. 4 can't go into 3. Well, no problem. We can solve that. We're just going to add a decimal point. So let's go into the decimal range. So when I do that, I'll put that little decimal there. And remember, we want that 0 in front of the decimal. That's important. So let's add a 0. Can 4 go into, and we're just going to ignore kind of the 0. Can 4 go into 30? Yeah, it can. How many times? 7 times. 28. So we're at 7, so minus 28. And we'll just do the subtraction like you would normally. So that's going to be 2. And then let's add one more 0. Bring down that 0. Can 4 go into 20? Yeah, 4 can go into 25 times. And there we are, we're done. We have a remainder 0, we are done, we have found our decimal. So 3/4 is the same as 0.75. Okay, and remember that 0 is important in front of the decimal. Alright, go ahead and try to do the long division with 4 6. Alright, can 6 go into 40? Well, it can get close. How many times? 6 times. Okay, so minus 36. And then, let's see.